evening. I'm Kim Tucker, and I'd like to welcome you to Senior Parent Night tonight for the class of 2023. Let's give them a round of applause. So we are really excited that you're here with us tonight. We do have a lot of information to cover, and we hope that it'll be a really informative event for you. I'm so glad that you're here, and so I'm going to turn it over to our principal, Dr. Eric Davidson.
Yeah, thanks, Ms. Tucker. And thank you all for being here tonight and braving the elements and whatnot to get out here. Welcome those of you who are joining us online. Thanks for your patience. It's quite an undertaking to try to get all of the different people together digitally and in person all at the same time. So we'll move forward with it. Like I said, if you need to look at it in the morning, that's fine. But I'm very proud of the group that's here and online, both the parents and the students, for the hard work that you've put in to get to this point. I know that it has not been easy. Your journey has been especially interesting compared to anybody else in the history of education. But look at you. You actually made it. And the light is so close to being at the end of the tunnel. But kids, it's not like right there, so don't tune out. This is that whole senioritis thing we're going to try to avoid. But we are excited to be able to share with you tonight some information that hopefully will clarify, and by clarifying should put your minds at a little bit of ease. I know I have 4 kids, 2 of them that are in college right now. And you would think, wow, as the principal of the school, it was a breeze for you. You probably didn't have any stress. You know how it works. No, I felt the same as you, sitting right there. I was talking to our counselors. How does this stuff work? What am I supposed to do when? I don't get it. So we're gonna kind of hold your hands and walk you through it. You won't understand it all tonight. Or if you watch this in the morning, the recording, you won't understand it all necessarily, but I think the most important thing is to remember the names and remember the faces of the people that work here. You pay taxes so that we can help you with stuff like this. We work at your pleasure and for you. We're here to help you and help your students understand and have the easiest time possible getting through this process. It's made complicated by federal guidelines and all kinds of things, and what we try to do is help step in the gap and explain and just make things as clear as we possibly can. And that's what they're going to do. That's not what I'm doing, so I'll stop talking and turn it over to them.
All right, next I would like to introduce our counseling team to you. I'm pretty sure that you know most of us, but just in case, if your child's last name starts with an A through D, Mrs. Turner is your counselor. She's right over here. If your last name starts with E through LA, you belong to me. I'm Mrs. Decker. If your student's last name is LE through Q, Mr. Lilly is your child's counselor. And Ms. Smith has last names R through Z. Now you might have known Ms. Smith from last year, and she looks a little bit different in this photo. That is because that Mrs. Smith is not with us anymore, but we have a new Ms. Smith, and she is fabulous as well. Another really important person for you to know is our college and career counselor. Some of you probably have had the privilege of working with her, Ms. Lindsay Ingerson. And she's right over here. You'll hear from her a good bit tonight. And then our 2 9th grade counselors are Mr. Miller and Mrs. Smoke. And now, someone who is not a part of the counseling team, but who is a part of our team in general, are our senior class sponsors. And so I'm going to invite them to come on up. So Mrs. Lombardo and Mrs. Kane, they have a lot of great information, all things graduation. So I'm going to turn it over to them. And I don't know, they might sing, they might dance. You never know. They're all fun.
No singing or dancing, I promise. You guys don't want to see that. Hi, I'm Kirsten Lombardo, and this is Jackie Kane. She told me I had to talk, so we'll be brief. But we just wanted to introduce ourselves and let you know that graduation will be here before you know it. The counseling department has done a fabulous job of getting your students ready. And then we step in kind of throughout the year to help celebrate plans for the events that you'll hear about coming up. And then, of course, hand diplomas alongside our counseling office in May. No, we do not know the graduation date yet. That's the most popular question we get. It hasn't been decided yet. What we do know is that your student will need a cap and gown for graduation. So if you are on our Remind, and I think that information is, oh, it's up there. There are some Remind texts for seniors. There's also some specific Remind breakdowns by last name on the Duluth High School senior page website. But we'll be, oh, perfect. Ms. Tupker said there is a slide for that, so it's coming. Thank you, Ms. Tupker. You'll be getting lots of information, lots of text messages from us about some of the events throughout the year, but also about what we call the cap and gown fee. This is what your student has to have in order to be able to graduate. Cap, gown, diploma cover, tassel, rental. We always graduate at the arena, the Gastock Arena. Rental fees for that. All of that stuff is fully included in your cap and gown fee. So be on the lookout for that. All of our information, like I said, is posted on the website. And then one quick little plug for something fun is our first really big official senior event is happening next Friday, September 9th. And we are having a senior class tailgate before the first home football game. So we would love to invite all of you seniors to our senior class tailgate, and we hope to see you there. What I missed, Ms. Kane? That's it?
That's it.
Okay. We are available, pay senior dues. Other than that, we're available via Remind text, email, website. Come see us. I'm right over here across from the theater in 6106, and we'd love to chat. Y'all have fun tonight. Thank you.
Our objective for tonight. So we are going to first talk about the senior application for graduation. Then we're going to talk about post-secondary planning, beginning with the end in mind. And we're going to end our evening tonight with a speaker from Georgia Student Finance. Those are the people that manage the Hope Scholarship. So we're going to hear from him, and then we also have a college panel from 3 different universities. So we have a lot to share with you. So what you need for tonight is access to the application for graduation. You should have been able to pick up a copy when you came in. You also had a copy mailed home to you. And your child should have met with us in their language arts class, and they should have a picture of it. So some of you might have 3 copies tonight. But you will need access to that tonight just so you can kind of follow along with what the information that's on it. You also will need access to the senior book. On our next slide, there is a QR code so you can scan that if for some reason you weren't able to pick one up. Or if you're at home on Zoom, you can scan that and you can download the book so that you can see it. Oh yeah, there we go. So you can, if you want another book. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to talk about is the senior application for graduation, and I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Turner to go over this part with you. Thank you.
Good evening. Okay, let's talk about the important stuff. How do we make it to graduation? So each student has a graduation application. And this is what it looks like. And so, as Ms. Tepper said, some of you may have a paper copy, some of you may have a picture, some of you may see it in your documents tab, in your parent portal. If you didn't know it was there, it is there as well. Or it will, if it's not there today, it will be there within the next week or so. Okay, so let's talk about what's on the senior application for graduation. It's your graduation expectations, the gateway testing, and the diploma type. All students are general diploma unless you have been advised of something different, but our diploma is basically a general diploma. Personal information is on there. Social security number is required if your student is going to be eligible for Hope Scholarship or Zell Miller Scholarship. And so if you have chosen to not have your student's social security number on there since they've been in school, this year is the year that we will need to get that information on file. And so what needs to happen is that you can give your student the social security card, they come to the counseling office, we'll take a copy of it, and then we will upload it to the Georgia Future site, and we will upload it into our site. And the reason why we must have the social security is because the state correlates their GPA and their money by social security and not by name. So if they do not have the social security when it comes time to pay tuition at the college, the tuition will not be paid. So it's very, very important. The parent information is on there, and if the information is not correct, please feel free to just draw a line through there and put the correct information on there and give it to the counseling office. And then credit requirements, post-secondary plans, and notes and signatures. Okay, so for most of you, this part of the application printed incorrectly, and that is the gateway exams. So at the time that we printed the graduation application, the test scores were not in. So your students, a large majority of your students took the social studies gateway exam last year, and they do have results, but their application says that they didn't take it. So they didn't take it, and if they don't know that information already, you guys can look they can look in their e-class, you can look in the portal, and the results are in there, and if you cannot find it, then the counselors or the testing office will definitely help you guys get that information. Next. Okay. So again, please review the information. If there are any changes, feel free to go ahead and make those changes and give it to us. That's it for that. Okay, so this is the part that's going to be the meat of the application, the graduation application. So on this chart here, you'll see on my right, your left, on the left of the page, it says subjects. So that's going to be your language arts, math, science, social studies, and so forth, okay? And then next to it, in the next column, it says general diploma. What is required for any Gwinnett County Public School graduate? So, as you can see, for language arts, math, and science, it says they need a total of 4 credits in order to graduate from any Gwinnett County school. And then world history, it's 1 credit, U.S. history, 1 credit, and so forth. Now, what exactly does that mean? So, 4 credits is pretty much, it's equivalent to 4 years. And the way that it's broken down is every semester, each class is worth a half a credit. So if a student takes 9th grade language arts first semester, that's 0.5. If they take second semester, that's 0.5. So in 9th grade, they will have 1 language arts credit. If they have passed every language arts credit and they have taken 9th and 10th, and now they're in 11th grade, they should have, and past 11th grade and they're now seniors, they should have a 3 right there. That means that they have earned, in the next column, they have earned 3 credits. The next column over means they have 1 credit left. So if you have 1 credit left, that means that you must be in a language arts class. And then again, they will pass first semester for half a credit, second semester for half credit. Now, we do have some other fun language arts classes where we may, they may get an extra credit, because they have some creative things added to it, but at a minimum, they must earn at least 1 credit. The same is true for math and science. If a student does not meet the requirement in the particular subject, then we will put them in that class. So there may be some seniors who are taking a biology class. Maybe they didn't fail it, maybe they transferred in and they took earth science in 9th grade, where our 9th graders take biology. So then we have to go back and put them in biology. So as counselors, we have to make sure that they are meeting all of these requirements, okay? So now if you go to the bottom where it says total, if you add all of those together, what the expectations are for a general diploma, it'll say 23 credits. That is the minimum amount of credits that a student must earn in order to earn a diploma in Gwinnett County. If they pass all of their classes, they will earn more than 23 credits, okay? Now today, the next column will tell you how many credits they have earned. Some students took credits from middle school, so they'll have more credits. Some students are dual enrollment students, they'll have more credits. Some students go to summer school, they'll have more credits. And then the next column says how many credits needed. Now you see the arrow there. It's very, very important. That number, where it says number 5, that box right there is the most important box on this page. Because this tells you how many credits, a student needs in order to graduate in May. If that number is 6 or lower, then your student is on track for graduation. If that student is 6.5 or higher, then your student is off track for graduation. Now, does that mean that your student can't graduate? No, that does not mean that. So, I am 99.9% sure that every student that is off track, meaning they have 6.5 or higher, has a plan for graduation. Some students will be able to meet that graduation plan by May, some students summer, and some students not. That's where on the next slide, we'll say that there's some notes there. The counselor has written notes. And we can go ahead and move to the next slide. Thank you. So where it says counselor notes, the notes tells you, like your student is short 1.5 credit in world history. Student will take a module to make up the credit, or student will complete credit recovery. So the counselors, the curriculum office, the teachers, we have all worked very, very hard to make sure that students are in labs to try to make up all of their credits so that they can graduate on time. If, for whatever reason, what is written on the page, it does not make sense to you, you do not understand it, please reach out to the counselor. We have spoken to the students, majority of them, some of them we have not been able to get, but we have spoken to a majority of the students. We've gone into the classrooms, we went in the classrooms last week, and we went over the application for graduation. They signed the application, we signed it, so they're aware of what the expectations are there, but still feel free to reach out to us if you need to. Okay, next slide. And then if you can go ahead and sign that, if you would like, it's not mandatory for the parent to sign it, but if you would like to sign it and return it to the counsel's office, please feel free to do that, and we'll put it in your student's file. So, let's recap. Review the senior letter with your senior. And they understand, the seniors, they understand what it means. Like if you see module, the word module, or credit recovery, or like a block class, or something like that, they understand what it means. But I'll just give you the short of it. A module is in their E-class and is self-paced, and they complete the assignments and quizzes so that they can earn credit for that course. Credit recovery is very similar, but they have to meet certain guidelines in order to be eligible for credit recovery. And then block classes are when we offer 2 semesters in 1 semester. So remember I said 0.5 credit first semester, 0.5 credit second semester. There are times where we will offer a class for 1 credit in a semester if that's going to help the students get caught up. Okay, let me see. Oh, can we go back? I think I did something. Let me see. Oh, if you have questions regarding the senior letter, please complete the form by scanning this QR code. And make any needed corrections and return it to the counseling office. Next slide, please. So now we're going to talk about the Duluth High School Depot, which is our college and career office, and that's going to be Lindsay Ingwerson.
All right, hi guys, my name is Lindsay Ingwerson. I'm brand new to Duluth this year, and I'm so excited to be part of your Duluth family. I'm a new college and career counselor, and I'm here for all seniors, regardless of your post-secondary plan, and I just want you to know, I'm in the counseling office, building 300. My office is called the Depot. Like Ms. Turner said, it is like the college and career center. So I have computers in there, you guys have your Chromebooks, you guys can come in there at any time to be working on college applications, scholarship applications, or just be working with me about your post-secondary plans. Some of the services that we offer in there are going to be assistance with your post-secondary planning. So this might look like career exploration through different types of assessments. This might look like making a plan for college, whether it be a 2-year school or a 4-year school, or maybe it looks at different parts of the military or things like that. I also going to be offering a lot of assistance with applications, and I'm going to show you how you guys can sign up for some of this in just a little bit as well. And we also are hosting a lot of college admission representative visits. So, for instance, today we had Princeton University come to campus, and we had about 20 students in that visit come and hear about Princeton and ask any questions they have. We have schools like Georgia Tech, Emory, Gwinnett Tech, all different types of colleges coming out this semester, and you can find that information on Naviance if you guys want to come out and hear what they have to say about their campuses and also ask them any questions you might have. As I mentioned earlier, another service that we offer is just guidance and career exploration and preparation. So if you guys need help making resumes, drafting your college admissions essays, interview prep, I'm here to help with any of that as well. Some of the important resources up here, and I'm going to go through a lot today, so y'all might want to take pictures, but this is going to be recorded as well. The first one is www.gafutures.org. So that's going to be the website that you're able to check your Hope and Zell Miller scholarship status. And it also has some other scholarship resources on there. And then you have FAFSA.ed.gov. FAFSA is going to be the federal application for student aid. That opens on October 1st. You guys can go ahead and create an account if you would like. But October 1st is when you complete your FAFSA, and on October 5th, we're going to have a FAFSA night here at school. And then the last website, GCPSK12/College and Career, is a college and career website that I'm managing that will have pretty much anything and everything college and career on there. How the application process works here at Duluth, how you use things like Common App, Naviance, and anything else you guys might have questions about. So this is a look into that college and career website, so you can actually access it through the Duluth High School website. So you'll scroll over the counseling tab, and then you'll scroll down to that college and career button, click on that, and it'll take you to this website right here, and you can find the events that are happening at Duluth. You can find career and college information, the college application process. It walks you through step by step. And then there's also going to be a scholarship newsletter on there that's being updated bi-weekly with some of the bigger scholarships around the United States. If you guys find any scholarships that you think are interesting or that other students would be interested in applying to, you're welcome to forward them to me, and I'll get them uploaded on there as well. And then lastly, we're that little rectangle is where it says college and career weekly updates. That's also clickable, and that'll take you to a weekly update of what's going on college and career-wise around Duluth High School. It'll tell you what kind of college visits we have going on, what kind of support groups are happening, and if you wanted to sign up for any kind of scholarship help session, those are all right there as well. Just a convenient place for you to find everything. So let's talk about some of the options that are after high school. So I'm going to talk a lot about college and university today. We're going to have some college and university reps, but we're going to also talk a little bit about these other options. So you have a 4-year college or university, a 2-year college or university. You may look at going to a technical college, maybe completing an apprenticeship, joining the military. If you're interested in joining the military, we're going to be giving the ASVAB test on October 18th at Duluth High School. That's an aptitude test that's going to look at student skills. You can take that whether you are planning to join the military or just want to learn more about your own strengths. And then you might just be looking at joining the workforce. So we have a few things happening already for that. On September 13th, we have a free job fair. That's where students are going to be able to get some resume help, interview skills, things to get you prepared for a job interview. And then also we have the actual job fair here in the evening on September 15th in the cafeteria. This is some information on college fairs. You guys can see this in your senior booklet as well. So since we have college rep visits coming to campus as well that you can find on Naviance, these are some of the more local ones. On September 14th, there's a pro fair at Shiloh High School. September 15th, Mountain View High School, and September 19th, Johns Creek High School. And then NACAT College Fair, those are all going to be virtual, so you can join right from home. September 11th, October 9th, and November 6th. And I'm constantly updating the college reps that are coming, so if you don't see a school you're interested in on Naviance yet, keep checking back or reach out to me, and we'll see if we can get them here. So the process to applying to college. Last week we were in the seniors classes and we went over this in a little bit more detail, and like I mentioned on the website, it goes step by step. So this is just kind of a general overview. But the first step is going to be submitting an application. This is typically going to be done through Common App or the school's website. And what Common App does is Common App will take one application for all of those schools. So say you're applying to Georgia State, Georgia College, and UGA, you only have to complete one application for those 3 schools. And then the next thing is that application is going to be connected to Naviance. So seniors have heard this word a lot. It's brand new to Gwinnett County, but Naviance is kind of like a college application document manager. That's where students are going to be requesting their letters of recommendation, their counselor letter recommendations, their transcripts, and it lays everything out nice and neat in one place for the students, and they just have to request that. There's buttons on the website that show you exactly how to do that as well. Once you do that, you have to pay the application fee. If you need a fee waiver, then you can contact us in the counseling office, or if you're applying for Common App, you just click a button there and it'll submit to me for approval. Sending your official test scores, you guys have to do this through collegeboard.com or the ACT.org. Those are where you submit your official test scores. Even if you submit your unofficial test scores through Common App or through the university website, you still need to submit the official ones through collegeboard.com or ACT.org. And then lastly, sending your high school transcripts. So that's going to be free through Naviance as long as it's an in-state school or it's a Common App school. But if we're actually having to send it and mail it out, then it's going to be $5 each. And there's a QR code for that in the counseling office.
Do they have to do transcripts through Georgia Future anymore?
So you can find your transcripts through Georgia Future, but we're trying to transition into Naviance. So all the students' transcripts have been uploaded into Naviance as well, and it's just to kind of keep everything in one spot. So try to go through Naviance if you can, but if you have to go through Georgia Futures, they're still on there. As far as admission testing goes, every school is going to be be different, so it's important that you guys are looking at the college's websites and checking. Some schools are still test optional, but most schools in Georgia are not, if they're part of the University Systems of Georgia. So make sure you're checking all of those websites and seeing what they require. We are hosting the SAT here at school. It's in your senior booklet. The ACT is not going to be hosted on campus this year, but you can still take that, and if you need any kind of fee waiver for that, you'll also see us in the counseling office. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about the Hope Scholarship Program, and we're also going to have somebody here from Georgia Student Finance that I'm sure will touch on this. The Hope Scholarship. The Hope Scholarship is a scholarship award in the state of Georgia. It normally covers about 60 to 80% of tuition. The requirements to qualify for this is a 3.0 calculated Hope GPA. Hope GPA is calculated a little bit differently because it doesn't take into account all of the electives that students take. If you want to check your Hope GPA, you can go on that gafutures.org and log in, and it has your Hope GPA calculated for you. So 3.0, about 60 to 80% of tuition, citizenship, completed FAFSA, and then you must be enrolled in a Georgia college or university. Zell Miller is going to cover 90 to 100%, typically 100%, and it's going to be the same requirements as Hope, but you have to have a 3.7, and then you have to have either 26 on the ACT or 1200 on the SAT, and you have to have 4 academic rigor credits. You can also check your Zell Miller GPA, Hope GPA, on that GA Features website. The Hope Grant and the Zell Miller Grant, those are going to be 2 different grants that are awarded to students that are looking at going into certificate or diploma programs. For Hope Grant, there's no requirement when you first start at the technical school, but you do have to maintain a 2.0 while you're there. The same thing for the Zell Miller, no GPA requirement to enter, but you will have to maintain a 3.5 once you're at the school. Not listed on there is another one called the Hope Career Grant, which is specific to trades that are needed in the state of Georgia, and it covers close to all of tuition at any of the technical schools. That's also all found on gafutures.org. Scholarship information, so I touched on this a little bit earlier. This scholarship newsletter here on the right, it's going to go out bi-weekly, and it is not an exhaustive list of scholarships. There's so many scholarships out there, but you guys can look at this as a guide to help you look at some of the bigger ones. It covers things like the Gates Scholarship, the Koch Scholarship, Questbridge, any of those types of scholarships. You can find the general information on there, the deadlines, and how to apply. Once you look at that, if you have any questions, students, parents, feel free to stop by my office or give me a call. And then Scholarship Resource Guide, this is also within your senior booklet, and it's going to be a list of different search engines where you guys can look up scholarships that you might be able to apply for. Scholarship Support Time is a new thing that started today, actually. Any student that's interested in getting some extra support for scholarships, whether it's your application or searching for them, every Tuesday during your advisement and lunch period, you guys can scan a QR code and then come into my office, and I will help you in a small group or one-on-one with your scholarship applications. If you need to scan that, that's on the morning announcements. It's also on the website that I showed y'all earlier. All right, so this is our financial aid presenter from Georgia Student Finance, Marcus Hilliard.
Good evening, everyone. I am Marcus Hilliard. I work with the Georgia Student Finance Commission. This is our agency up in Tucker, and we coordinate primarily the Georgia Hope program. However, my team specifically, we actually conduct all of the statewide consultation on financial aid readiness, all right? Let's see here. So a real quick overview. I always like to start the presentation to discuss what financial aid is and what it is not. It won't make the process easier necessarily. However, it will reduce some of the stress. So when it comes down to financial aid, pretty much the entire point of financial aid is to work a process where all of our students are actually applying for as much funding as possible to cover what's called the estimated cost of attendance. That's what that COA stands for over here at the very top. And ultimately, I always encourage that, especially speaking to parents, when speaking to your students, we want to explain the difference between tuition and just the cost of attendance, or I'll say that differently, the cost of attendance and just tuition, because tuition simply means the amount of money that it costs for a student to actually go to class. However, the whole point of financial aid, of course, is to get the estimated cost of attendance covered, because that includes tuition, room, board, books, miscellaneous costs. Sometimes schools will have technology fees and insurance and transportation and things like that. You don't want to find yourself in a position with your students or as students where you spend your entire senior year only seeking out financial opportunities that cover tuition. You want to make sure that you're looking to see, is this an opportunity, a scholarship or grant, if you will, that will pay for any part of the cost of attendance, or will it only pay for tuition? It's very important to identify that, but it's always most important to apply for as much funding as possible, okay? Now, with that, when it comes down to this cost of attendance aspect of this whole conversation, it's very important to understand that although dorms and all the additional fees and the meal plans are pretty much comparable no matter where you go across the country, the tuition is what's going to be the game changer, because every institution, meaning a college or university, it is always either private or public. So when a school is actually a public institution, this is also what we call a state school, which means that tuition rate, it will be the in-stated rate for all students that are residents of that state. But when it's a private institution, as history has shown us, that tuition could be 3 to 4 times higher than the in-state rate. So it's very important to make sure that we're looking at this from a very logical decision about what's most affordable for the family, because again, all the campuses are pretty comparable, and what they have to offer is pretty much the same in this day and time. But what will be the game changer again is if it's a higher cost at a private institution versus an in-stated rate at a public institution. Now, none of that is to say that either institution is better than the other. It's just understanding that education is a business and we have to pay to play, okay? Now, in this next part of the presentation here, where it says funding types, when you look at financial aid, it's pretty much like a big pot of soup with all these different ingredients. You have scholarships, you have grants, you have work study, which is just a part-time position on campus for students. And then, of course, you have a college savings plan. You may be most familiar with the 529 plan here in Georgia called Path to College. This would have been something that maybe a parent or a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle sometimes, but ultimately some adult, when that student was younger, most likely you've invested in some college savings plan that goes into some type of investment market, and it just builds and builds and builds. So when we get to this pinnacle point that we call undergraduate studies, versus having to pay out of pocket expenses, we have a college savings plan to dip into. All right. The next one here, which is called it's basically military resources. That one is pretty traditional and very much known, and it works the same for this generation of students. Every student is either enlisting themselves into some branch of the military, or they're the dependent that is connected to a parent that is actually associated with the military. That's what we call independent funding in this process. So if you are connected to the military, or if a student is connected themselves to the military, that's a separate conversation to have with whichever branch that you're a part of or will be a part of that always has a Veterans Affairs department. They can work that process for you and basically let you know what are the opportunities for military resources in the entire financial aid process. Now, the next one here, which is basically a payment plan, this one is very much different from let's see if I can turn my pointer on. I hope you can see that. A payment plan here, this is totally different. So at the beginning of every semester, whether it be fall, spring, or summer, or if the school is on a quarter system, the expectation is that by a certain date, usually at the very beginning of the term, within the first maybe 2 weeks of school. The expectation is that the student will have what's called a zero balance. And you pretty much just think of that just like when you go to Kroger or any grocery store and you get all of your food and then you have to pay the bill before you can leave the store. But in this case, on a payment plan, if you're in a position where that bill still has an amount of money that needs to be paid, sometimes schools will have an opportunity for parents and students to set up a payment plan to break down that zero balance into smaller parts until the student gets to that zero balance. But think of that as a new bill that's going to be a part of the household, all right? And then, of course, at the very end of all of this, you want to make your final option. You have the loans that are available to students for undergraduate and graduate studies, to be honest with you. But in this particular conversation, pretty much every loan, it is going to be either from the federal government or it's going to be from a private lender, all right? The only difference is that when you're applying for federal loans, it's because you're submitting a longer form that we're going to talk about shortly called the FAFSA, or you're actually having a one-on-one conversation with a lender such as a bank or some type of loan servicing agency, maybe some type of perk through an employer if you're a parent. And in that same conversation, that's when you can delve into other options as far as co-signing and maybe competitive rates for interest and things like that. But all of these together, these are all of your ingredients for what we call financial aid. So I always start the presentation with this tidbit of information because I think it's very important to understand that financial aid has not ever been a one-stop shop. It's pretty much a process within a process within a process, and everything is connected. And it's all one big pot of money, but it comes in various forms. But when they all come together, when they're combined, it's to basically pay for what will become the student's actual cost of attendance. At this point in a student's senior year, we're just focused on the estimated cost of attendance like a budget. But once the student actually chooses whether they'll be full-time or part-time, if they're living on campus or off campus, their meal plan, etc., that will determine the actual from the estimated cost of attendance. Now, when it comes down to all of these different ingredients for this big pot of soup that we call financial aid, you can only get them, the ingredients, from 4 different places. And if you have a moment, definitely take the time to write down these 4 different things, the sources of financial aid, all right? Financial aid is one big pot of money, but all of those different grants and scholarships and loans and that whole list that I showed here, they're either coming from the institution itself, it's coming from an independent source, it's coming from a federal source, or it's coming from a state source. So what that means is that when you look at the timeline of senior year, right now is actually the peak season for admissions. So in the next few weeks, you're going to hear a lot about college fairs and the probe fairs and a lot of virtual visits, if you will, campus visits also for the institution. I always recommend from a best practices standpoint, we want to change that narrative and not just focus on admissions from a headspace of, will I be admitted? Most of our students around the nation are all high performing during this era. They're going to be accepted somewhere. So you're going to have that GPA. You're going to have those test scores, meaning ACT or SAT, etc. But it's very important that when you're applying for admission, that you not only apply for admission to schools that will admit you, but schools that are also offering institutional funding, because this is typically in the form of scholarships. And you want to make sure that you're asking those questions, because this could also be a game changer on whether or not this is an institution that we need to apply for admission. Because if you're just offering admission, but you're not offering admission and money, this may not be the place. All right. Now, the next one here, which is independent funding, this is usually in the form of what we call private scholarships. I always tell students, listen, especially seniors, listen to your counselors, because I've yet to meet a single counselor yet over the last 14 years who doesn't have some recommended resource or page on the counselor's website or some type of database that they always highly recommend to every senior class to actually research scholarships, all right? Now, with these scholarships, the reason that I always recommend calling them independent is because when you're looking at independent funding, that means that it's coming from a separate source, some source that is independent from institutional, and it's independent from federal, and it's independent from state. But really, independent just means separate. So let's say, for example, if you worked at Chick-fil-A part-time, as a part-time worker, there are different opportunities for the workers at Chick-fil-A, whom are high school students and undergraduate students and adults, if you will. But however, Chick-fil-A or a Kroger or a Walmart, your church, If you're a Boy Scout or a Girl Scout, if mom or dad is in a sorority, or if it's the military, whatever the case may be, whoever the independent source is, they will have their own independent way of how they choose recipients. So what that means is that they'll have a different application, a different due date, a different eligibility, and ultimately a different amount of money. So it's very to give you as a scholarship. So it's very important that throughout your senior year, and if there are any juniors or junior parents on the call, it's very important to start researching and listening to your counselors about what are the recommended resources. I'm sure they probably mentioned them earlier tonight, but I will always promote ours as well. Your students as Georgia residents and account holders on Georgia Futures, they have access to a free scholarship finder that they can include with whatever resources that their counselors recommend. And then also look at two other places. Every student usually has to take the ACT or the SAT, and those two databases, those two organizations, they typically offer some type of search engine as well for private scholarships, which we want to now call independent funding. All right. Now, when you go further down into your ingredients and you're looking through these 4 different sources, whenever you see this word here that says federal, it's always connected to a longer form that is called the FAFSA, FAFSA. The FAFSA is just an acronym that stands for the Free Application for Federal Student Funding. So although I'm calling it federal funding to just give the differentiation, whenever you hear funding, it's pretty much the same thing that we're saying when we're talking about student aid. But I think sometimes that student aid gets confused with the word financial aid. So I decided years ago, I'm just going to call it something different. We'll call it federal funding so that we know exactly. So whenever you hear any scholarship, or you hear of any grant or any loan or any type of financial aid, just kind of take a beat, pause, and just do the research to find out, well, is this a funding that's coming from the institution, from an independent source? Is it because we submitted our FAFSA? Or is it because I'm a resident of a certain state and there's a state funded opportunity? The only way for every student across the nation to actually work the financial aid process the most efficiently, it is by actually taking the time to pace yourself and getting some type of game plan to apply through the institutional means and the independent, the federal, and the state. Because remember, all of these together, these are all sources of financial aid, and all financial aid, it comes in the form of all of these different types. But that's why the process becomes a little muddled and confusing, because it does have a lot of moving parts. And to be honest with you, it's really not a hard process, especially in this era with so much technology. It's just that our students just need to know where to apply and when to apply and how to apply. So that's why we have nights like this with your counselors to actually provide that information as early as we can in senior year. Now, going to that very last one here, state funding. For this particular one, you have 2 different ways that you can actually apply for state funding here in Georgia. I always recommend, highly recommend that every student submits their FAFSA, because when you're a Georgia student, your FAFSA will act as your application for federal funding, which is always grants and loans. However, it will also, or can also, act as your application for state funding here in Georgia. The financial aid offices, they will have a process, a departmental process in place to show your eligibility for federal funding. But there's a secondary process that actually allows the financial aid offices to communicate with not only the high schools, but also our colleagues over in the Student Aid Services Department with Georgia Futures / GSFC to show eligibility. So when you submit your FAFSA, that's applying, but your eligibility can only be displayed through the one premier source that we call Georgia Futures. Now, for all the parents on the call and in the room, you don't necessarily have to have an account yourself, but for every single student that's in high school, but most importantly, our seniors, we want to make sure that they actually have an account. Every student in the room and on the call, a little bit of homework between now and as soon as you can, make sure that you log in to check the spelling of your name, your birthday, and all of your personal information, because we want to make sure that it's whatever is on file at your high school that will ultimately become your final transcript. It is exactly how it is displayed as your personal information on Georgia Futures, because that again is how the high school counselors or registrar will communicate with GSFC. And in the long run, a year from now, next summer, that is how GSFC will then communicate with the financial aid offices at all eligible schools that can receive Hope or Zell Miller or whichever state funding opportunity on your behalf. Now, we're going to go back a little bit and talk about the FAFSA. So I showed you the list of 4, and I'm working it backwards. So I talked about state first. But I want to go back to the FAFSA because for all the parents on the call and in the room, as you may or may not know or will soon know, this is the only part in the financial aid process that if you have a dependent student, you will need to actually put a little skin in the game, all right? Now, with the FAFSA, this form always unlocks on October 1st, all righty? And it's online, of course, and I'll give you the website and everything. But I think it's important to understand exactly what is the FAFSA. Of course, it's an acronym that stands for the Free Application for Federal Student Aid, but it has about 50 to 75 questions on it, and it's much more simplified than it ever was. So if you are one of the adults on the call or in the room that has submitted the FAFSA before, you may remember all this tension and stress and misunderstanding about the form. The version that your students will see on October 1st, this is a couple of years after what was put in place as the FAFSA Simplification Act. So the form that you will see, not the form, the version of the form that you will see in exactly 1 month and a day, it is much more user-friendly than it has ever been before. So don't sweat it. Now, let's go back to what it does. On the FAFSA, pretty much it has 2 sides. If you're a dependent student, it has a side for you. And then if you are the parent of a dependent student, it has a side for you. And when you actually submit all of your personal information as one household, it all syncs together. Now, if there are any independent students in the room, or if you have any questions about independent status, please reach out to myself or your counselors directly so that we can communicate through that, because there are some situations in the real world where they make you an adult and they allow you to be independent, but they don't necessarily always apply in the financial aid process for undergraduate studies, all right? But I said all that to say, basically, if you think that you're independent, your section on the FAFSA for parents, you wouldn't necessarily need to submit any of their information because you're seeking independent status. Now, on the student side of the FAFSA, pretty much there's going to be one question that will allow students to submit the names of up to 10 different institutions around the nation. Remember, the FAFSA is federal funding, so it's nationwide. Ultimately, every school that can receive federal funding on your behalf in the form of grants and the form of loans, they will all have what I mentioned to you earlier as the cost of attendance. Every single school has its own cost of attendance. So if you ever believed or have ever heard or have ever been told that if you choose a more expensive institution, that the government is going to get, federal government is going to give you more money, that's a myth. This is a process. Remember, financial aid is always a process within a process within a process. So all the money is pretty much a straightforward amount once you submit your form and the government works their magic to show your eligibility, all right? So once every school provides their cost of attendance, every single student will submit the FAFSA. And when you submit your form, what will be generated is the result that we will call, well, I'll say it 2 different ways. In the past, we called it the EFC number, but there's a transition going on where the EFC number is now going to be called the SAI. It's called the Student Aid Index. But the one thing that and it's just a number. The one thing that hasn't changed, though, is that it's based on the factors on the FAFSA. And the factors on the FAFSA are basically if the student is independent or dependent, how many people live in their household, is based on different types of income, is based on specific assets, and it's based on things of whether or not if you have siblings that are in undergrad at the same time. So basically that number will determine eligibility for federal grants. But no matter what that number is, it won't determine your eligibility for federal loans. Because remember, the FAFSA, it only gives federal grants and federal loans. The federal government does not provide scholarships. They do provide financial aid, but not in the form of scholarships, all right? Now, on down the road, after you all are offered admission, you're going to have to make a decision. It can only be one place, meaning one college or one university. So their financial aid offices, after you have been offered admission, they're going to start communicating with one another to show basically we need to alert this student with a financial aid package. They may call it an award letter, but ultimately call it what it is. It's a financial aid package. And they're going to show you basically when you, as a senior right now, if you decide that this is the place next year, school year 23, 24, this is our estimated cost of attendance for you, all right? Now, based on your FAFSA and the result of that FAFSA, you're eligible based on that number for this amount in grants. And they're going to start subtracting that from their estimated cost of attendance. And then if you decide to utilize the loans, they'll do that as well. And in the same process on down the road, they'll start to build and stack money And once you're eligible for things like the Hope Scholarship and for the Zell Miller Scholarship, and if you have a bunch of independent scholarships coming with you, and then of course, when you're offered admission, they'll show their hand from the beginning and hopefully tell you, not only are you being offered admission, but you also have institutional scholarships as well. Now, after they work all of that magic to show they cost this and you're eligible for this, at the very bottom, they're going to give you a financial need. It's very important to understand that when you see whatever that number is, that one, it will be different from each of the schools that you actually apply for admission, because remember, the money, your eligibility, that does not change. But what can change and will change, I assure you, is how much each one of those schools actually costs, their cost of attendance. So when they tell you that final number, which is your financial need, they're not saying that you should wait until you get to that campus or start basically overwhelming the financial aid office because you need more money. They're telling you from the very beginning, months in advance, before you come to this campus, this is how much financial need that you need to bring to the table. But that is why when we have nights like this, we show you the process of financial aid. And I do my best to basically encourage you to understand that it's not just one website, one due date, one application, one type of money. It's all of these 4 types with all of these different funding types. And you have to work the process of financial aid to apply for as much money as possible. And then you'll make your decision about what's most affordable for you as a student. And ultimately, if you're dependent, what's most affordable for the family, because it is a family decision. Now, this one here, I'll leave up for a few. This is actually how you submit the FAFSA. Personally and professionally, you'll hear a lot of us say, complete your FAFSA, just complete it, complete it, complete it. I personally and professionally do not like saying complete your FAFSA. I prefer to explain the process. Right now, your goal is just to submit your FAFSA. That's all you need to work on. Technically, what I know as a former financial aid advisor on a campus here in Georgia, a FAFSA is not technically complete until the financial aid offices work their magic in the process. Because remember, financial aid is a process within a process within a process. All right. Right now, we're just focused on submitting. So for the 23-24 FAFSA seniors for your freshman year next year, it will be made available on October 1st. All right. Now, that's not a due date. You do want to make sure that you pay attention to, after you've been offered admission or even before you've been offered admission, pay attention to if that institution has a priority date, because typically that priority date that they're communicating that they need for you to submit your FAFSA, it is probably connected to a cutoff date of when they start to disperse any institutional funding. And remember, we're choosing more schools to give us institutional funding. So adhere to that institution's priority date, but the form itself, the federal government will make this available October 1st. When they do, you'll actually go to a computer or log on to the internet, of course, to go to studentaid.gov. Last year, when you met most of our team, we were promoting the app that was available, but there were some changes for different reasons. Everyone needs to go to studentaid.gov now to first create an FSA ID. All right. Every student, because this is your application, this is your FAFSA, you have to create your own FSA ID. And it's basically just a username and password that's connected to you forever, because you will you will provide your name, your birthday, your social security number, your address, your phone number, your email, all the things that are all of your identifiers or what they're called. You'll utilize those to create this, and then you'll have your username in case you ever forget it. Now, for all parents of dependent students, you will need to create a separate one from your students. But you have to remember, as the parent, I know you love them, but this is their application. So I always highly recommend allow them to start this application. And then once they answer a few inquiries, they'll tell the form whether they're dependent or independent, and then the sections for you as their parent will unlock, and you can come right behind them and then put in your information. But however you work the process, I do highly recommend submit your FAFSA. All right. Submit it as close to October 1st as possible, although that's not a due date, but ensure to submit it well before that institution's priority date. Now, with the 23-24 FAFSA, it does require a lot of information, but when it comes to the income, which are two of the factors that determines that student's EFC/SAI, it will be based on income for a specific year. In this case, for the form that's being made available next year for 23-24 on October 1st, it will require your income information from 2021. The most efficient way to submit that information is to actually utilize a feature that is designed within the FAFSA called the IRS Data Retrieval Tool. When you get to the sections for both parent or student that says financials, if they decide to continue calling it that, you will know it when you see it because it's about your money. If you decide to utilize that particular feature, you will have to answer yes or no for the most part. You can manually do it the traditional way and actually submit your information manually. But for all intents and purposes and no human error, again, I highly recommend utilize the feature that is inside of the form, because if you think about it, this is a federal document or a federal application for federal funding that needs your federal tax information. So it's all connected. You just have to authorize it. Now, where it gets a little bit confusing on the FAFSA, or muddled, I don't like the word confusing, where it gets a little challenging, it is the section after the income when it starts to ask questions about your current assets. So if you ever have any questions, you can always save and close the form and reach out to myself or your local rep. His name is Howard Wilkinson, or anyone on our team at the office. We're all here to help. If you have any questions about any of the assets that are on the form, you can give us a call. We can set up a free consultation. We conduct those daily. They're free 30-minute consultations to actually answer all of your questions, because year after year, parents and students, sometimes there are always questions about the assets. That's just a part of the process. All right. Then again, another incentive to actually submit your FAFSA. This can also act as your application for state funding. So remember, federal funding is nationwide, but for Georgia students, it will allow you to actually apply for statewide money, which in particular, the most popular one we call Georgia's HOPE program. Now, if you decide for whatever reason not to submit your FAFSA, give me a call or send me an email. Let's talk through that. I always am very curious to know why. We would not want to know all the options for financial aid, but we can talk through it. There is a state application as well, state aid. Remember, I'm using the word funding, but that it's actually called state aid, but I'm using the word, oh yes, that's correct. I'm using the word funding. So for state funding, there is an application, but I do recommend go ahead and submit that FAFSA. A little more homework for everybody, in particular the students. Make sure that you go to the website, our website, Georgia Futures, and you click on that first tab that says HOPE and state aid, because a lot of Georgians don't know that there are actually almost 19 different, or actually 20 different options for state funding here in Georgia. The whole program is just one of those options. And within that totality, 5 of them are the most popular here that you see to the right. You have 3 grants and you have 2 scholarships. The way you differentiate whenever you see the first 3 grants, this is actually money to pay for tuition only. Remember, the whole point of financial aid is to get the cost of attendance covered. But inside of the cost of attendance, you have tuition. All right. State funding here in Georgia can only go toward tuition. But there are 3 grants. These are for all of our students who pursue a certification or a technical diploma. Now, at the bottom here, the ones that are more popular and most known are the HOPE Scholarship and the Zell Miller Scholarship. These are actually the opportunities for our students who are pursuing a bachelor's or an associate's degree. And when you look at the scholarships, this is when we get into the conversation about eligibility being based on a 3.0 for HOPE, a 3.7 high school HOPE GPA for Zell, and then of course the 4 rigorous courses, and then for the Zell Miller Scholarship, the test requirement. But all that information, to save a little time, I'm going to show you where to get it. You can actually, for the folk in the room and at home, you can pull up Georgia Futures right now, the very first tab in dark blue that says HOPE and state aid. We have all of the opportunities. But the takeaway for this particular screen, just remember, it's not just the HOPE, Zell Miller, and HOPE career grants. There are 2 other opportunities called the scholarships. Some of the grants can be combined to a degree. And remember, there are over 19 different options, but each one will have its own eligibility requirements. But to apply for it, it is still either the state aid application, or what I recommend highly, just submit your FAFSA as a student. Now, let's see here. Good on time. Perfect. So here's my contact information. These are actually the territory that I cover is called North Central Georgia. I'm stepping in for my colleague tonight, Hal Wilkinson, who ultimately he's very seasoned. He's taught me a lot, actually. So you can reach out to Hal directly for information, or you can reach out to me directly. We just want to make sure that you have the information. We do conduct free assistance on everything from our brochures that are online for those that we'll provide in person, tuition for those that we provided the probe fairs and all year round. They said no charge to you. We're just here to help. And then ultimately, again, we offer free 30-minute consultations. If you would like to speak to me directly, just send me an email and I'll provide you the link that will provide you my calendar. You just pick a time and we'll sit down and we'll talk. All right. In the meantime, make sure that you connect with us on social media. Even though all of these are listed, I always, and even mine is listed for Instagram, I think it's very important that while we take a few questions, if we can, counselors, I'm not sure how we want to work that. I think every student and every parent, make sure that you follow us on Instagram. You don't want to follow GSFC. You want to follow Georgia Futures, all right? Because we offer this presentation over and over again, a live presentation monthly. We have a different topic about financial aid that we speak on. And every 2 Tuesdays out of every month, we also have what we call Tip Tuesdays that are live streams on IG. All right. In the meantime, you can always go to Georgia Futures as well. Click on the tab that says resources and you see these blue brochures. These are actually the covers from our brochures from last year. You can actually download those to your phone or print them out because they're all PDFs online. With that, counselors, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Oils to kind of navigate and give time to each.
Yeah, that's awesome. I hope you guys can hear me okay. I'm broadcasting from my kitchen at home, but I'm really glad to be here with y'all. My name is Cindy Boyles, and I am an Associate Director of Admissions at the University of Georgia in undergraduate admissions. And I'm excited I've got these questions here in front of me, and I'm excited to be joined by some colleagues from Georgia College and State University, and also from Emory University as well. So excited to be here with y'all tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in person and virtually to learn more about applying to college, how to pay for college as well. These are all really wonderful tips to hear. So I'm going to kick things off. So the first question is just going to be a quick introduction from each institution. So I'll kick things off and then pass things off to Jillian. And then to our colleague as well from Emory University too. So, but I'll kick things off. We each have a few minutes, maybe 2 or 3 minutes to introduce ourselves and our college very briefly. And then we have a series of 5 other questions here to pose to each university. So again, my name is Cindy Boyles, Associate Director of Admissions at the University of Georgia. And the University of Georgia is not far down 316 from you all in Duluth. So I'm excited to be here with you to talk about the University of Georgia. The University of Georgia has over 40,000 students currently in both undergraduate and graduate programs here. We have over 250 different academic majors and programs to offer students, which I think is a very big selling point for the institution. Within that, you are not being screened for admission when you initially apply for admission based on what major you list. And so that gives you the freedom and flexibility to really pursue the path that you're interested and intrigued by, even after you've enrolled at the university. We have some really great programs, and I want to highlight 2 of those for y'all quickly before I pass this off to my colleagues. We have a great Double Dogs program where students can pursue an undergraduate degree and a master's degree in 5 years. So we're hoping to save students time and money by pursuing that undergraduate degree and then doing a pathway into a master's degree program. And that's combined during their final year, but then just taking 1 additional year. So we have over 200 different pathways that are a part of Double Dogs that students can choose from. And there's a lot of really strong interdisciplinary work being done within those programs as well. And that's an exciting thing about UGA. The other thing that I want to highlight really quickly is experiential learning. We now require all of our students that graduate from the University of Georgia to have at least 1 experiential learning component satisfied before they can graduate with a UGA degree. So we want students to be able to have that really hands-on experience before they get their degree. And so you can do that a number of different ways, whether that's through internships, through studying abroad, through undergraduate research opportunities in any area. Service learning is also a great opportunity. So those are some really exciting things to hear that we have to offer students. The other thing that I'd like to leave y'all with is to come and visit us. We have campus visits throughout the week and also on select Saturdays as well. We would love to see y'all come and visit our campus and get an official tour that is led by a currently enrolled UGA student. So with that, I'll pass things off to my colleagues at Georgia College and State University.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Cindy. Hi, everyone. My name is Jillian Bullock. I'm an associate director at Georgia College in Milledgeville, Georgia. Georgia College is one of the top 3 most selective public universities. We have about 6,000 students, so we are the smallest of the 3 on the panel tonight, but we are still pretty big. You're not going to know everyone in your graduating class. Our average freshman class is about 1,500 students, so it's still a pretty big class. But our classrooms, our class sizes are pretty small. So 95% of our classes have 50 or fewer students. Our student to faculty ratio is 17:1. We have a ton of things to get involved in. We're located about 15 minutes from Lake Sinclair in historic downtown Milledgeville. So there's a really cute historic district. It kind of looks like a mini Savannah. So lots of local restaurants, local boutiques, but we're also off of 441. So all of your chain restaurants are kind of there as well. We have over 170 organizations. So that includes different clubs, study abroad on every single continent, including Antarctica. I'm not sure why a student would be interested in traveling there, but it's available. We also offer cultural organizations, LGBTQ+, faith-based organizations, volunteer service, sororities and fraternities. About 30% of our campus is involved in Greek life. And we have some upcoming deadlines as well. So October 15th is for early action for us and to be considered for merit-based scholarships. April 1st is our regular rolling. So I think that pretty much wraps it up. I'm going to pass it over to Emery.
Thanks so much, Jillian. And the slide there. Awesome. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jatan Davis. I'm an Associate Dean of Admission at Emory University. We are a medium Research 1 university with about 8,000 undergraduate students between both of our campuses. We have our Atlanta campus, which is what most people think of, but we also have our Oxford College campus, which is in Covington, Georgia. That's where Emory College was originally founded. So we do give students a choice to choose where they want to spend the first 2 years of their undergraduate experience at Emory University. It's all Emory University. We have about 1,000 students at the Oxford College campus, 500 freshmen, 500 sophomores. The other 1,500 freshmen, 1,500 sophomores are on the Emory College campus, which I refer to as the Atlanta campus. And then all juniors and seniors are on the Atlanta campus. We are rooted in the liberal arts. So Emory College and Oxford College are liberal arts colleges for Emory University. Students, you don't choose your major until the second semester of your sophomore year because we have over 80 different majors, 60 different minors, 10 pre-professional programs. That's a lot for you to choose from. You're gonna find out about areas of study that you had no clue existed. So we give you a lot of time to explore those first 2 years to figure out what you might want to major in. You can also double major at Emory or choose a major or a minor as well. And then in your sophomore year, you would choose if you would go on to the business school, if you go on to School of Nursing, or if you will continue on in the College of Arts and Sciences. If you are interested in engineering, we do not have an engineering school at Emory University. However, we do have a computer science as well as engineering sciences major, which is very interdisciplinary in nature. All of Emory is very interdisciplinary in nature, meaning that we believe that you need to have a little bit of knowledge of a little bit of everything to really solve the problems of the future. And so if you do want an engineering degree, we really encourage you to think about what kind of conversations you want to have on campus. If you want to be completely immersed in engineering talk throughout campus, then perhaps you want to, look for a college that does have an engineering school. But for those of you who really want the liberal arts experience, but you also want an engineering degree, we do have a dual degree program with Georgia Tech, where you'll get your degree from Emory in about 3.5 years, and then you'll pick up and move over to Tech to complete your engineering degree, right? We have over 450 different student organizations on the Atlanta campus. We have about 200 different student organizations on the Oxford College campus. And yeah, there's so much more that I could share. Of course, I'm sure my colleagues could as well, but I want to be respectful of time so we can get to our other questions. So Cindy, I think I'll turn it back over to you to kick us off for the next one.
Yeah, that's really great. Thank y'all so much. I'm excited to be here with y'all. So the first question is going to be about the application review process and what what each institution is going to be considering in that review process. So to switch things up, I think I'll go to Jillian first to answer this question, and then Jatan, if you can answer next, and then I'll wrap things up. But the question itself is, what does your institution consider when reviewing a student's application? So what are we talking about here? Grades, academic rigor, test scores, extracurriculars, essay responses, all of those things. So Jillian, I'll pass it to you.
All right. So there are a couple of different review processes that universities typically utilize when reviewing students. You might see minimums, you might see freshman index. We utilize a holistic review, and that is a fancy way of saying that we look at everything. So we are going to be looking at your grades, academic rigor. We look at academic trends. So did you start off as a strong student and stay strong consistently? Or did you maybe hit junior senioritis and start to go downwards? That would be a negative academic trend, right? We also look at extracurriculars, involvement, volunteer service, diversity, talent, all sorts of stuff. Like, what can you bring to Georgia College that is unique? That's all really important. But then we also look at demonstrated interest. And that's something that not every school looks at, not even every holistic school. And for us, that can mean coming on a campus tour, putting in your essay that Georgia College is your number one choice, getting in touch with your admissions counselor, attending different Georgia College related events. So that is something that we look at throughout the admissions process, and that is called demonstrated interest. But we kind of look at everything.
Yeah, and very similar to Georgia College. Emory University also utilizes the holistic admissions review. And so I know you've probably heard about holistic admissions a lot. I always say that, and I always get head nods when I'm meeting with families in person. But it really, we really do. And the best way I can convey that we look at everything is to give you a story. The first year we went test optional due to the pandemic. So we are actually test optional again for this year. So for our you seniors, right, we're test optional for you. We're reviewing that policy on a year-to-year basis. But I took a phone call from a dad who was an alum of Emory University. So his son would be considered a legacy student. And he was really concerned. He couldn't believe that his son was not admitted. He was waitlisted. He had a 4.0 GPA. I remember looking at his file, although I couldn't tell him I did, can't tell you. But I remember looking at his file, and his rigor was really good. We do look at curriculum. That's the core of what we begin, really, right? To see if you challenge yourself in the context of what your school has offered. We look at your grades, right? He had a 4.0 GPA, so he did well. And then we were test optional. He happened to be able to take a test, and he submitted his SAT score. So I think the thought is, well, if it's test optional, or if I submit my SAT score, then that's going to give me a leg up. Not necessarily. His score was a 1520 on the SAT. He was waitlisted, right? So he had this legacy flag going for him. He had a great GPA. He had some good rigor. That wasn't a problem. He had really good testing. But all those other pieces, right? We're looking at those counselor recommendations. We're looking at your teacher recommendations. We want to know who you are day in and day out in the classroom. How are you bringing in outside conversations to elevate the classroom content, right? Or are you someone who others seek out for assistance when they don't understand a concept? Those things are really, really important to us because we're trying to build a community at our university. We're also looking at your non-academic engagement. Now, for you all, your activities have definitely been impacted by COVID. So we understand that. We're looking at it within context. But we do want to see how you are exploring your interests outside of the classroom. If you're thinking about medicine or creative writing, right? What are you writing a book? Are you in a writing club? Are you writing a blog online? Are you shadowing a doctor? Are you taking a course that's really challenging yourself in the STEM field, right? So we want to see more at Emory University than just what is part of your day-to-day curriculum. And of course, your essays, all of these pieces really, really do matter. And if they're not there, even if you have that 4.0 GPA with rigor and strong testing, those other pieces have to really be strong to be successful in the Emory University admissions process. Cindy, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah. For the application process and what we're looking at in the review, we are very similar to these other fine institutions that we look at all the things that you put in the application. I want to encourage you all to go to our admissions website and read we have a Q&A blog on there that is led by one of our senior associate directors of admissions who's been at the institution for over 25 years, who very much gives an insider's view into our application process and what that's looking like for each current year. Academics are always going to be a primary focus for us. So if you go to our admissions website, you can see that we do focus on grades in core classes. We look at the rigor based on what's available in your specific high school. We also look at test scores. We are not a test optional institution. We require official test scores of either the SAT or the ACT. And if you send us all of your scores, we'll definitely super score and use whatever happens to be the highest. But in addition to those academic factors, we also look at all the other things too. So we look at all your activities and your involvement. We look at your leadership experience, both inside and outside the classroom. We look at all of your commitments to whatever it is that you've been involved with, and we pay very close attention to the context as well. So what have you had access to in terms of your high school curriculum? We know that no two high schools are the same, and they're going to vary based on what's available in their specific high schools. Is your most challenging coursework going to be an AP curriculum or dual enrollment or IB courses? Or maybe it's just honors courses too. We understand that, and we spend a lot of time training and discussing what's going to be important to the context of what you have done academically and also outside the classroom. Along with that, one thing that we do differ from here with some of the other institutions is that we do not use demonstrated interest in the review process. So I think it's important to note that every college is going to be a little bit different. You've already seen some pretty big differences between each institution, whether we use test scores or not, demonstrated interest, all of those things. I do think it's important to note, though, that the holistic review process really is just that. I think that over the years, people do get fixated on maybe one part of the application process and think that's going to be like a make it or break it, right? And really it's not. All of these different factors are going to come in concert together. And we look at all of those things. So as someone who has read applications this is now going to be my 18th year, reading and reviewing applications is really fun. We want you guys to be yourselves and to feel confident and comfortable in telling us your stories. And know that we want you to be authentic. We don't want to hear what you think, what you think we want to hear. We just want you guys to be yourselves. So make sure that you're doing that in the application review process, and just know that those are all the things that we're considering in the review process. All right, so we have a couple of other questions here. I'm hoping we can maybe quickly get through 2 more questions based on what's on the list here. And so I think the next question that I'm going to ask, and then if we can all be kind of quick in our responses, that would be good, because then there's a good question to round things out. How would a student determine if your institution is the right fit for them? And so I think I'll start with my colleagues at Emory University first, and then we'll go to Georgia College and State University, and I'm happy to wrap things up there too.
Sure. So how would you determine if Emory University is right for you? Well, you would need to look at what it is you want in an institution. What's the size that you want, right? How does that translate to classroom sizes? What about for campus life? So let me speak just a little bit about classroom sizes. Average class size is 19 students on the Atlanta campus. There's 16 students on the Oxford College campus. We are Division III sports. Emory University is a university where sports really not anything in particular really defines our culture, right? It's more of a kind of like a grown-up life. We do have Division III sports, and they're really great teams that won national championships every year. But we do not have a football team, right? So when you think about the kind of college experience you want to have, and if attending, football games on every weekend, and if you want to have that kind of environment, then Emory University would not be the great fit. But if it's not so much important to you, if you don't mind go over to Tech and checking out a game, because we do have a shuttle that goes over to Tech and it's very, very close, then that's great. But we are a liberal arts institution. If you come visit, that would be great. You're not too far, and you can hear from us, the admission staff, but you can also hear from our students. They'll give you a tour, and then you can ask them directly about what it's like to be a student on campus. But I would say coming and visiting campus, you're very close, you can do that. But also talking with our students and talking with them about what's really important to you, the kind of environment you think you will thrive in. And that is how you will determine if an institution is a good fit for you.
And I'm just going to add to that. I mean, she mentioned visiting campus. Visiting campus, I think, is wholeheartedly one of the best ways to truly feel whether or not a university is right for you. So visit all of your top choices, because the school that you thought was your first choice might not be your first choice after you visit their campus. Visit our campus as well. We offer tours every day of the week except for Sunday. So there's really no excuse why you can't. I mean, our campus kind of looks and feels like college in the movies, is what I like to say. It really is a traditional feel. It's a very walkable campus, even though it is a little big to walk, but it's still very walkable. So visit campuses, really get a feel for the environment and the culture.
This is great advice from each institution. I'm just going to echo really quickly. Visit our campus, y'all. Neither of these three institutions are far from you all. And we offer campus visits all throughout the week and also on some select Saturdays. I'll be honest with you guys, there are some Saturdays where we just can't have campus visits, and that's football game days. It's a little mad around here as there's a lot of people in town, so we can't do it then. But other Saturdays, there are going to be some great times to come visit campus, and fall is a really good time to see the campus itself. You will get to interact with a currently enrolled student, and I imagine you can do that at other institutions as well. So I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to visit a campus and just see if it's going to be a good fit for you. I do think that for the University of Georgia, we do have a lot of support for students when they're on campus, especially in that first year. And we have a high retention rate for our first year students. So they're doing well and they feel supported once they're here. But you need to see if that's going to be a good place for you. We're a very academically minded campus as well, too. So there's going to be a lot expected of you when you're here as a student. So it is important to know and see if it's going to be a good fit for you. But visit all of these campuses, visit a lot of other campuses around. You guys, we got some great institutions in the state of Georgia. All over this state, you've learned about great ways that you can help pay for your college education as Georgia residents. So don't sleep on these opportunities. There's some really fine institutions here with some great academic programs and student engagement. Be sure to seek out those opportunities to see as much as you can, and take your family members and supporters with you too. Talk to them about it as well. So our final question that we have here tonight, and I hope we have enough time for this one. Any final advice that you all would give our high school seniors and their parents as they start their college planning process? So Jillian, I'll turn it over to you first to kick off this question. Any final words of wisdom that you have for our students here tonight?
I've got a couple. Okay, I'll kind of list it. So first, locate the universities that interest you. Check to see if they have the programs of study that you're looking for and the organizations or activities. And keep in mind, the major that you're looking for might be something similar to what they offer. So if you're looking for something like a videography, that might be called mass communication at one university. So be mindful of that, but look for that. Start visiting campuses. So really visit, and then start talking about financial aid and cost, because sometimes students wait way too long to determine cost. And they may want to go to an out-of-state institution, get accepted, confirm, and then over the summer, when they get the bill, realize that it's going to be $30,000 as opposed to $6,000 a semester at an in-state with Hope or Zell. So be thinking about cost, break everything down, break down tuition and fees, housing, the meal plan, an estimate for books and supplies, and then in-state, like national scholarships, university scholarships, grants, loans. Break down everything and kind of determine what is the bottom line for each institution, because costs can be kind of determined in different ways. And sometimes the bulk of the cost might come out of something that is not tuition. And I get asked all the time, what's your tuition? But housing is also a really big cost, and a meal plan is also a big cost. So find the bottom line for those schools, and then make sure that you've applied, get admitted, and then visit again. Visit a second time, come for a preview day, because I feel like it's a really good way to narrow it down. And then once you narrowed it down, you can work with that admissions office on those next steps.
And for me, I'm the private university so I have to say Emory University is a university that meets 100% of the family's demonstrated financial need. We do require the FAFSA, the CSS profile, but we could be cheaper than a public institution. So definitely reach out to us, utilize myintuition.org to get a sense of what kind of financial aid package that you would receive from Emory University. That's the one piece of advice. The second and last piece of advice that I'll share is I would encourage you all to take a kind of like a long-term view when thinking about college. Think about what kind of experiences you want to have. More generally, like, do you want to study abroad? What kind of friends do you want to have, once you graduate from college? Do you want to know a lot of people that are within your local area? Do you want to know students who come from all over the world, right? Think about the different kind of experiences you want to have. Think long-term and kind of work backwards. And I know that sounds, very lofty, but sometimes I think we can get so focused on, okay, the immediate next step, that once we get through college, right, we think like, wow, if I really thought about all that I potentially want to experience in the world, maybe I would have thought about this a little bit differently. So that's my advice.
Great. And I'm going to wrap things up super quickly because we're almost out of time. I'm going to have two pieces of advice, one for students. I've already said this, but I'm going to say it again. Be authentic, be yourselves. Tell us your stories, okay? Parents, the piece of advice that I have for you all is to think about this journey and applying to colleges as a tandem bike, okay? Except you're not in the front seat. Your students are. And they're taking the lead, they're exploring their options, they're taking ownership of all these different college applications that they're submitting, and you're in the back to guide them and support them. Okay, so students, take ownership of this process, listen to the pieces of advice that are out there for you, but know that you are in control of this. And that means a lot of responsibilities is going to be on you as well to learn and understand these things. Listen to these great pieces of advice that all of these institutions have shared with you today, because we've given you guys a lot of good tools of how you can navigate that process and that relationship as well. But yeah, students, this is going to be an exciting time for you as well, parents. And so we're all here to help. Reach out to us if you need us. We are going to be accessible online in lots of different formats too. So thank you so much to Duluth High School and the counselors for hosting this great program. It's been great to be here. And if there's anything else that we can help with, just let us know.
Thank you so much to our college reps, Ms. Boyles, Ms. Bullock, and Ms. Davis. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We're going to wrap up here for the people in the auditorium. We are going to move it over to the evaluation form so that people from Zoom can fill out the evaluation. And I'm going to pass it along to Ms. Tepker for the people in the auditorium to wrap up.